Hello everybody, welcome back to a new video. This is going to be a continuation on the video we did last time. We're going to be working in the same project. As I said in the last video, somebody asked me to explain both pad sounds and effect sounds kind of a bit more in theory and kind of go over my process for actually making them and designing them from scratch if I do. Now effect sounds are a bit different because most of the time I don't actually sound design the effects on my own. If I need like a downlifter, I will just drag in a sample. But I can try my best. I have done quite a lot of sound designing, especially on like downlifters or something like that. So that was maybe not the best example because they're very easy sounds and you can take them very far if you want to. But for this tutorial, again, we're going to stay very simple, just like the last one. So let's get right into it. Alright, so we're back here in the project and we did design two pad sounds last time here. And I stated that if you imagine this to be the start of the drop, then I don't want any elements practically here apart from maybe one or two lead sounds. And that's because often when the intro or the second break kind of ends, we have very long reverb and delay tails that kind of cover this area, so that already has some elements in there. So we're not going to start from the start here, but I do want a riser effect in here. Now the reason I determine where I want my effects to kind of start and end is I always choose the end of a 4-bar segment basically. I never end it here, or for example from here to here, or from here to here, because that makes no sense in the structure. You need to look at the structure of your track and you need to see, okay, where is a transition? Which in this case we have here. If you listen to this, you can really clearly hear that it's the end of a segment and a new segment is starting. We have the reverse kick as well as the crash. So if you listen to this, you can clearly hear that that's something where an effect can build up to. Because most of the time effects are kind of these uplifting sound or riser sounds or downlifters, stuff like that. So let's actually make that. And we're going to start off with making a MIDI clip, and we'll start up with a nice noisy uplifting effect. Now for my noises, I kind of tend to use kind of sweepy noises all the time, which is very easy to make. What I do is just turn on the noise oscillator and set it to a nice volume, and I throw on a bandpass on that. And this allows us to listen to very specific frequencies of the noise, kind of like this. Now I want the volume to also rise. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn this back down, and we're going to set up a macro to control both of these knobs simultaneously. So we have one knob to move for our effect to work. And I'm quickly going to throw down a MIDI note here. Now what I tend to do is with noise, it doesn't really matter which key you play, especially with the noise oscillator in Serum. It will always play the same noise no matter which key you have, if you have key tracking turned off, which we have in this case. But what I like to do is if I want to go back in the sound and I want to put some tonal stuff under it, I want it to be in key. So it's always important for me, at least, that my noise sound, even if it doesn't matter, are still in the right key of our track here. So now we have this nothing basically, and that's because the macro is at 0. So if we turn this up, we can really hear that we have a rising effect. Now it takes a little while for it to start rising, and one of the things I hear is that this thing is just too low. So we're going to turn it up like this. Which actually we're modulating the wrong thing here. If you looked, we're modulating the wrong sound, so, or the wrong knob. So we're gonna be doing the macro, sorry for that. And now we should have a better sound. And it's a little bit too harsh for me at the end, so I'm going to slightly turn down the modulation. And what I often tend to do is, as I said, when I have a reverb and delay that works for background elements and as well as a sidechain, I tend to just copy them over. So we can give that a try. It might be a bit too extreme for this particular sound here, because it has a lot of high end, and I don't want the high end to be constantly sweeping about and stuff like that. So we might turn these knobs down a little bit, but we won't mess with the timing or the size or any of those other controls that kind of change the tone of our reverb and delay. Yeah, you can hear that it's a little bit too much. As well as you can hear, this filter is turning it down in a way that I don't like. So instead of removing all the lower frequencies and just turning it up, I'm going to diagonally turn it up so all the high end kind of stays in there as well and carries over in our delay. So they should work a bit better. So that should be a nice transition. I'm going to make the delay a bit shorter by turning down the feedback. And it's going to be our first effect. And in the context of the actual track, it sounds like this. I might want to turn it down a little bit. Again, it's a background element, so you don't want it to take up the whole mix. Even though we don't have any lead sounds in this track right now, to kind of demonstrate a bit more about the background, I decided to not put in any lead sounds, so it's a bit easier to actually listen to. Now for the second sound I want to make something tonal, and this is where you can really experiment. Even though the same theory kind of applies, it's still basically finding an endpoint. For example, this final kick here, after which we have presumably like a fill element or the introduction of a new lead sound or something like that, but we kind of want to build up to that point. Now we're already kind of doing that with the pad sound, as well as we have some high passing being done with my filter rack, for which there's a tutorial on my channel. You can hear that we're kind of doing some high passing here on the kick as well as on the bass. So I kind of want to build up to that element, to that final kick here. And to do that, we're going to use another serum, and this time we're not going to use any noise. I want some tonal things, and therefore here it's very important that you choose the right key. Even though we're going to probably use some pitch bending, it's very important that you want your pitch bend to end at the key in which your track is in, so that it sounds natural. Otherwise it's still going to sound out of key. So let's set this to an octave, and I'm quickly going to dial in a nice pitch bend like this. And I tend to always, when doing effects, kind of give it a little bit of a curve. It sounds a little bit more natural to me. And I just pick a nice sounding wavetable. Let's try this one. This has not a lot of high frequencies, which I'm kind of after. And we're also going to turn this down. So that sounds very natural in our key, and we're going to use a bandpass to kind of get the frequencies we want in there. And I'm also going to have this sweep up. So the whole trend in these effect sounds is to basically have all the elements sweep up a little bit, so that it becomes more energetic towards the end, so that you have this kind of tension from the not really the start point, because it's going to fade in, especially when we're doing this volume, which I'm doing right now. But you want it to resolve to a certain point in which a change happens to your track. And again, we're going to quickly copy over our delay and our compressor. And I'm also slightly going to turn up the filter cutoff here at the end as well as the beginning, because we don't want the lower range to kind of come through. So that sounds very nice. It could use a little bit of a boost in volume. We can use the drive for that and kind of look at our meter here. Now our pad sound is a little bit in the way. We could turn this down, but we can also turn this up even more through the compressor. You can use that as kind of a gain knob as well. Now I don't want that starting tone to go in there, so we're also going to automate this as kind of a second volume. Now we can basically also turn this volume down all the way, but I don't want it to be too much, so I'm quickly going to turn the curve up a little bit. So that sounds kind of nice. Of course, again, you can go in here and do all kinds of crazy sound design things like comb filtering and stuff I like to do. Filter FM, which I've talked about before. The whole thing, which I've uploaded a little while ago with the smearing effect with M Transformer. Other things I've done with M Transformer, I've shown a lot of different sound design tricks, also for effects and pad sounds and stuff like that, which is really cool. But the whole point behind this video is that you kind of want to make everything resolve to an endpoint, especially for effects. You don't want it to put it here and it won't really sound that great. It doesn't really sound that good as you would have it here. Maybe it's a bad example because it's exactly 4 kicks before that, so that's something we can remember. But if you have it like 2, maybe then it's a little bit weird, or just 1 kick before it. You really want to use your effects to transition from one part to the next. So that's kind of what I wanted to point out, and I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, feel free to let me know. And if you like this video, leave a like, that really helps a lot, and subscribe for more. And thank you all for watching, and bye bye.